Spot for local.
Another No Kings protest this weekend in Tampa Bay. Are these protests effective? Call and leave a message 813-755-6562 and tune to Florida Matters live and local Monday at 12 noon on WUSF 89.7.
Yeah, Florida Matters live and local up next after the news.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, Caldwell Trust Company, an organization which has been navigating clients toward their financial goals since 1993, building wealth and preserving legacy, the way it's meant to be. Learn more at ctrust.com. Sarasota Opera presents Mozart's Così fan tutte and the Sarasota Youth Opera performing Hans Krasse's Brundibar. These fall operas launch their main stage season October 31st through November 15th. Tickets at sarasotaopera.org.
In thousands of communities across the country, Tampa Bay included, demonstrators took to the streets on Saturday.
I don't usually come out and protest, but it's important.
The No Kings protest took aim at Trump administration policies like immigration detention raids and slashing federal education resources. I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up this hour on Florida Matters, live and local, if you went to the demonstrations, why is it important to protest? If you weren't there, what kept you away? Call and tell us about it. We're at 813-755-6562. Then, opioid overdose deaths in Florida are plummeting. How is Narcan, the overdose reversal drug, helping fight the opioid epidemic? And if you have a pet, your fur baby may be your hero, but are they worthy of an award? Find out what goes into training a service dog. All this and more on Florida Matters, live and local. First, these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are in Israel. The visit coming after an outburst of fighting in Gaza over the weekend threatened to derail the ceasefire. NPR's Daniel Lestrin reports from Tel Aviv.
Israel says Hamas opened fire at troops Sunday, killing 2 soldiers. Israel responded with a wave of strikes, killing at least 46 Palestinians, according to Gaza hospital officials. President Trump said it appeared to be a rebel group within Hamas that launched the attacks. Israel said it would halt aid shipments to Gaza, but Israel quickly reversed course after the U.S. intervened, telling Israel and mediating countries not to harm the ceasefire and to continue aid to Gaza. That's according to a person briefed on the matter, not authorized to speak publicly. U.S. envoys Witkoff and Kushner are visiting Israel, and Vice President J.D. Vance is also expected to visit this week to negotiate the next steps in the ceasefire. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The federal government shutdown heads into its 4th week with no serious negotiations on a way to end it. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports the Trump administration's moves to keep federal programs going is prolonging the stalemate.
The Senate will vote for an 11th time tonight on a bill that funds federal agencies through November 21st. Democrats are expected to block it, insisting any deal to reopen the government must address expiring health care subsidies. The Trump administration moved money around to pay the military and tapped tariff revenue to keep a nutrition program going. Virginia Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw supports paying the troops, but says this strategy isn't sustainable.
Every day that the shutdown continues, it's harder for the administration to try to play whack-a-mole and mitigate impacts.
Until the consequences of the shutdown are more widely felt by the public, there's less pressure on Congress to end it. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News.
President Trump says he's withholding all U.S. subsidies to Colombia and plans to impose new tariffs on the South American country. This after the president of Colombia said U.S. strikes on boats from Venezuela amount to murder. Washington argues it's targeting drug traffickers. NPR's Ada Peralta has more on the fallout of the diplomatic clashes in the Caribbean waters.
These strikes, they've happened in the open waters, so a lot of what we know comes from the U.S., and what they're saying is they've struck at least 7 vessels, which they alleged were loaded with drugs coming to the U.S. Last week, U.S. forces attacked a semi-submersible. A U.S. official told NPR that it appeared to be headed toward Europe. 2 were killed, and 2 were taken into custody in that incident.
That's NPR's Ada Peralta reporting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up more than 350 points at last check, or roughly 0.75%. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. A $500 million redevelopment project on I-4 is set to begin 10 years ahead of schedule. As WUSF's Ricardo Cuomo reports, it should improve traffic in the area.
The Florida Department of Transportation will build new express lanes on a 17-mile stretch of I-4 in Hillsborough County, from Interstate 75 to County Line Road. The project was set to begin in 2037, but will now start within the next 3 years. It'll separate long-distance traffic from local commuters to relieve congestion. Governor Ron DeSantis says the project promises several benefits.
The lanes will make a difference. It will increase reliable traffic flow, and it will give people a better option to be able to get from the Tampa area into Central Florida or vice versa.
DeSantis also announced a new 100-space truck parking facility in Polk County to further relieve traffic on I-4. Ricardo Cuomo, WUSF 89.7 News.
You are paying less for gas than you have in nearly 2 years. AAA says the average price of a gallon of regular unleaded across the state is down to $2.89 a gallon. That's 3 cents less than last year and 29 cents less than this time last month. It's also the lowest price since December of 2023. AAA says with oil supplies up along with a seasonal dip in demand, prices should continue to trend down. Motorists across the greater Tampa Bay region are paying even less at $2.85 on average. The University of South Florida football team moved up one spot in the Associated Press top 25 poll. The Bulls are now ranked 18th after beating Florida Atlantic University during their homecoming game Saturday. The University of Florida also won on Saturday, but it was not enough to save head coach Billy Napier's job. Napier was fired after an error-filled win against Mississippi State. In 4 seasons at Florida, he had 22 wins and 23 losses. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
This is Layla Faldel with NPR. If you've been thinking about selling that car that you don't use anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars, even more, in support. Thanks.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from Seitenbacher, with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. Well, overdose deaths are down in Florida. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement says deaths caused by opioid overdose dropped by 32% this past year, and the sharp decline in opioid deaths in Florida mirrors what's happening nationwide. Naloxone, an overdose reversal drug better known by its brand name Narcan, has been a big part of the fight against the opioid epidemic in recent years. So what kind of impact is it having here in the Tampa Bay region? Here to tell us more is Monica Gonzalez. She's a recovery peer specialist with the Hillsborough Recovery Coalition. Monica, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, thank you for having me here. My voice is a little bad right now, so I'll just put that out there. But thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you making the time to speak with us about this subject. We know it's very important, so appreciate that. We want to hear from you as well. Have you seen how naloxone can reverse an overdose? And are we winning the war against opioids? You can call in. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Send us an email too. The email address is FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, Monica, a 32% drop in overdose deaths statewide seems like a lot. And just to put some context around that, the numbers are 3,726 opioid-caused deaths reported last year. That's 1,750 fewer than the year before. I mean, you're pretty embedded in this stuff. You've been seeing the impact of the opioid epidemic at the boots on the ground level. Is it a surprise to you that this drop has come?
I don't think it's a surprise. naloxone has nationwide been really pushed and flooded into communities. And so, because of that, a natural result is going to be the overdose deaths going down. And we get reports from people all the time. We visit areas and we distribute Narcan. And somebody that we saw 2 weeks prior will come and see us and say, "Hey, I need more. I used it last night or the week before or whatever." So it's being utilized in the community, and it's no surprise because of that.
So for folks who maybe don't know how it works or what it is, can you just give us the kind of description of what it does and how you use it?
Sure. So naloxone or Narcan is a nasal spray, and it comes in a box, comes 2 doses. And so if you suspect somebody is having an overdose, you would first just pick up the phone, call 911, put it on speaker as you're getting everything ready. You lay the person down on their back. You grab one of the doses of Narcan, open it up, stick it in their nose, press down on the plunger, and it's just that simple. You can keep giving somebody a dose every 2 minutes until they start breathing again or paramedics arrive. What's great about Narcan is that if you're not sure if somebody is having an overdose, it's still safe to administer it. So it's not going to hurt somebody who's not having an opioid overdose. So if there's no opioids in their system, it has no effect at all. And the way it works is it basically knocks the opioids off of the receptors in the brain, and it creates a coating on those opioid receptors to prevent the respiratory system from shutting down.
Wow.
So it's safer than most medications. You can use it on an infant. You can use it on a pregnant woman. You cannot overdose on it. I would say it's safer than Tylenol, but that's a weird, I've always said that, but that's a weird touchy thing right now. But
yeah, Tylenol is a little political at the moment for whatever reason. But okay, so it sounds like, and the fact that it's so easy to use, I mean, that's a game changer, right? Because I'm sure until naloxone came along, what were the options?
So there weren't many options, and naloxone has actually been around for a really long time. It just was not it was not being used in public settings like this. It was being used by medical professionals, and it was an injection. But throughout the years, they've evolved it to become something that is so simple that I believe in West Virginia, they're training like elementary aged children to be able to use it. Yeah.
And that sort of tells you something a little bit about, the level of, where we are in terms of the opioid epidemic, right? If it's gotten that serious that you need to sort of get the training down to that level, and also something about the ease of use. If you've seen signs offering free Narcan at your doctor's office or college campus, just kind of tell us what you think about it. Do you think it's necessary? Give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. We're with Monica Gonzalez with the Hillsborough Recovery Coalition, which is involved in distributing Narcan. Now, you've got bird boxes out there, so to speak. Just tell us what's going on with this. My understanding is it's kind of like a little free library, but you've got Narcan in it.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. So we have these little boxes, and we put them in storefronts or clubhouses anywhere in the community, whoever's willing to host one. Right now we have some in some tattoo shops, etc. And they're just these little wooden boxes that people can come and anonymously pick up boxes of Narcan, and they're refilled regularly. So that way it's always available, whoever might need it.
Mm-hmm. And has it been popular? I mean, have you found that you're having to restock them fairly frequently?
Yeah, we would love to have more in the community. We have more ready to go, find a home. We would love to be able to put more in them. They are getting restocked pretty regularly, but for us, it's not enough. We want everybody to be taking some. We want this to be in every household as a part of every first aid kit.
Mm-hmm. So you're a recovery peer specialist, Monica. What exactly is a recovery peer specialist?
So that means I'm a person in long-term recovery, and now as my work, my professional life, I help other people who are either seeking recovery or they're actively in recovery, and we as peers just walk with people through their journey and meet them where they're at and help them become the most ideal version um, of themselves that they want to be.
Mm-hmm. How important do you think, Monica, your personal story is to kind of helping people get the help they need, or sort of seeing that there's another way to deal with this?
I think when you're sitting down with somebody and they start telling you something and you're able to kind of finish their sentence because like you already know what they're going to say, it like adds a sense of ease and comfort, because there's so many aspects of recovery, and one of those is the doctor, the person who went to school for it. And then the other one is the person who's lived it and who's been able to kind of see what works, see what doesn't work, and kind of has created a pathway for the next person. And both are equally valuable. But there's something so comforting about somebody who's just been there and is not going to judge you.
Mm-hmm. We hear so much about fentanyl, right? I mean, it's sort of been dominating headlines when we talk and think about the opioid epidemic in the United States. And, it's a very powerful opioid prescription medication that unfortunately is sort of open to abuse, I guess. But are there other dangers out there that also need some attention?
Yes. Tranquilizers right now are becoming more popular. And what's really frightening about tranquilizers, and an example of that would be like xylazine, if anybody doesn't know.
And what is xylazine? Is it something like, what would you be using that for in a kind of legal sense?
So xylazine, tranquilizers are used for animals. They're not really meant for us. And they're tranquilizers, like they're called, and they are. People get a hold of them. They're being used and they're lacing that in a lot of the street drugs. What's really scary about it is that something like Narcan does not work on tranquilizers. And also medications that would typically treat opioid use disorders that would allow people to comfortably, enter recovery and get off something like fentanyl. Those medications don't work on these tranquilizers. So this is like a whole new territory where we don't have the modern medicine and understanding to be able to combat something like it.
Mm-hmm. When you think about sort of where we are in the opioid epidemic, I mean, is it just looking at the drop in fatalities, where do you think we are in kind of this war on the epidemic? Are we winning, so to speak, or is that too simple?
I will say we're winning. We're winning in the sense that less people are dying, right? But the ideal number of deaths is, of course, none. And just because the overdose deaths are down doesn't mean that overdoses are down. It doesn't mean that substance use or opioid use is down. It just means that less people are dying. So people are, of course, like being reversed from an overdose using Narcan, but we are still trying to increase the level of support in the community and increase the access to care and to treatment. So that way, when somebody has their life saved by Narcan, they have somewhere or something to do to get into recovery, to get those resources. Because, of course, the only requirement for recovery is to be alive, but we have to have the proper support for people post overdose to and of course prevention is the ultimate ultimate thing here.
Indeed. So lots of work still to be done. Monica Gonzalez, recovery peer specialist with the Hillsborough Recovery Coalition. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Well, coming up next, a cold front paid Tampa Bay a visit yesterday. Cold front, I'm not sure if anybody felt it. More chills are on the horizon, but does that mean the hurricane season is fizzling out? We'll talk about it in a moment. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
I'm Scott Tong. The impasse on Capitol Hill has pushed the federal shutdown into a third week. We'll look at the impact on national parks across the country. Wildfires are burning, but will those risks be communicated to the broader public? Next time, Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also the family law firm of Harris, Hunt & Durr, lawyers who listen and act, protecting each client, their family, and their financial future. Experienced trial lawyers, tough negotiators, collaborative divorce resolution. Harris, Hunt & Durr, protection without destruction. Tombolo Books in St. Pete, presenting P. Jelly Clark for his novel Ring Shout, a dark fantasy historical novel, on October 21st. Tickets and more details are available at tombolobooks.com.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, a cold front swept through Tampa Bay on Sunday. Granted, it's going to be in the 80s all week, but we Floridians will take any dip in the temperature, right? And it did bring a little bit of rain. We haven't seen much of that lately. So, is this hurricane season fizzling out? Could there still be a surprise brewing in the tropics? For more, here's Spectrum Bay News 9 Chief Meteorologist Mike Clay. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, so rainy season is already officially over in Tampa Bay, right? And it was a pretty dry September for Tampa. I think 0.7 inches of rain recorded at Tampa International Airport. That's the lowest since 1890. What do you make of that, the fact that we've had a pretty dry summer, so to speak, in the Tampa Bay region, and things seem to be kind of cooling down a little bit?
It's a pattern that kind of established itself back around the 1st of September with a big trough in the eastern part of the country, and that brought a lot of dry and cool air to the eastern part of the country. And the big trough is also, there's been a lot of hurricanes. There's been 2 Category 5s, but they've all stayed offshore because they can't get under that trough, and they manage to just go out over the open Atlantic and go out over colder water, and that's it.
Yeah.
So if you're out there between Bermuda and the United States, it's been a very busy season, but they're all different, and every season is different. And last year was certainly crazy enough for we need a break this year, and we're getting it.
Yeah, so far. I mean, October's been pretty dry too. That's all just due to that trough kind of hovering over the continent.
Everything from Texas to the Carolinas has been dry. The Southeast is in a drought right now. We've kind of not there yet, but we'll be getting there if this dry weather continues. So it's been very dry, very stable all along the Gulf Coast, and areas down to the south, even through the Caribbean. It's been pretty quiet as well. So the big storms have been there coming off the coast of Africa, but they've all taken that turn out over the sea. Last year, the big storms that affected us, Helene and Milton, all sort of formed southwest of us. And so that's why we were in the target zone for both of those.
Yeah, they sort of snuck up through the Caribbean. What about, so we're looking at a system, I'm not sure if it's gotten a name yet. Last I looked, it was like 98L or something, so it's still in the numerical category, hasn't been named yet, which is the next step, as we know, to kind of getting a better sense of where a storm may or may not be going. But it's kind of cruising along below some of the islands there. What's happening with that? What are you seeing?
It's probably going to develop. There's a very good chance it'll become at least a tropical storm or a hurricane, but it will also be affected by this pattern, and it'll be taken to the north up towards perhaps Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, perhaps as far east as Puerto Rico. And then once it gets out away from the islands, it will become a fairly large storm in the Atlantic. So this one has gotten a little bit further to the west than the other ones have. This one has made it into the Eastern Caribbean. But it's probably going to turn to the north too. So the pattern is not favorable at all for anything to get this far west. If anything were to affect us, remember the Tampa hurricane of 1921, the Tarpon Springs hurricane, was in late October, but it formed in the Western Caribbean. And there's no sign that this system out there now is going to make it that far west. It'll turn to the north before it does.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Mike Clay, Chief Meteorologist at Spectrum Bay News 9, talking about the cold front and maybe some more on the horizon, what's happening at the tail end of the hurricane season as well. Mike, I mean, there is quite a lot of warm water in the Caribbean right now, though, right? So is it just sort of a bit of a waiting game to see how far the storm sneaks into the Caribbean? Because the further it goes, the stronger that storm could get, right?
The further it goes west, it could, but I think it could still be a hurricane if it turns to the north and crosses the islands. The further it goes west, though, it's going to run into wind shear. So it takes more than warm water. If that was all it took, you'd have 10 hurricanes a year in the Western Caribbean.
Yeah.
Those waters in the Western Caribbean are extremely warm right now. It'll be interesting to watch in the winter to see if we can get something non-tropical down there. We've had that before when the Western Caribbean hasn't been worked over during hurricane season. And then all of a sudden we just get this big blob of rain that comes up from the Western Caribbean during the winter. We had that in 97 about this time of year. So it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of moist, unstable air, and there's a lot of very warm water down there, but there's certainly no sign of anything tropical for me.
Could something like this, though, stir up the water enough that it brings the colder water to the surface? I mean, this is something I've heard meteorologists talking about, right, and people who study this stuff, that, you know, if you can stir things up enough, it can kind of churn the water up. That cools everything down a bit.
It does, and it's happened in the Atlantic where there have been a number of storms so far this year east of the U.S. But in the Western Caribbean, is so warm, it takes a lot. It takes like a major hurricane, a slow mover, to really work that water over. And this one will not be. It will be a small system, and it will turn north well before it gets to the Western Caribbean. And then when it gets out in the Atlantic, it'll be a big storm. But in the meantime, it'll move. We certainly don't want to see those islands, Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, Haiti, Puerto Rico, but they could be hit by a hurricane coming up from the south, crossing and heading into the Atlantic in a couple of days later this week.
For folks who maybe aren't paying as much attention to this stuff as you are, and other people who look closely at the weather, is, you know, when you look at what's going on and where the storm could go once, if and when it forms, once it heads over those islands, that's going to suck a little bit of energy out of it too, right? If it sort of goes over
those islands are mountainous. Yep, it probably will, but once it gets north of there, it'll have plenty of opportunity to strengthen into possibly a big Atlantic hurricane. But of course, it'll be out over open water like most of them have been.
Yeah. When you think back to the start of the hurricane season, is this kind of like, I know, you know, meteorologists say every hurricane is different, every season is different, it only takes one storm. That's something we hear a lot because it really does only take one storm to really, you know, make things uncomfortable for folks, and we know that from living through last year, 2024, here in the Tampa Bay region. But when you think back to what the prediction was, or the outlook for the number of storms and the potential for some of those hitting Florida, are you kind of surprised that we're now at this situation here and saying, well, we haven't seen anything major cross over our coastline as yet?
I'm surprised that there hasn't been anything in the Caribbean or the Gulf, really. We can't say that completely because, you know, early in the season, there was a short-lived tropical storm, Barry, which made landfall in Mexico. But the remnants of Barry went up into Texas and contributed to the 4th of July tragic floods that killed so many people in central Texas. So that probably wouldn't have happened without the remnants of tropical storm Barry a couple of days later. But otherwise, it's been incredibly quiet. The Atlantic has been very stable. The air mass has been very stable, very dry. And so there are just some seasons, 2020, last year, late in the season, when everything just goes. And then there are some seasons where nothing can go. Well, this one's kind of a combination. The stuff in the Atlantic has gone up, 3 major hurricanes, but the location has been far off to the east.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen one like this in 28 years in Florida, but on the other hand, they're all different.
Indeed. We've been speaking with Mike Clay, Chief Meteorologist at Spectrum Bay News 9. Thank you so much, Mike, for your expertise. Appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime.
Up next on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're looking at the aftermath of the No King's Day protest. Did you go? Why did you decide to go? If you decided not to, what kept you away? Do you agree with the president when he says it doesn't matter? Let us know. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also write us an email at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. We're talking about that in a moment when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
On the next Fresh Air, Ken Burns talks about his new PBS documentary series on the Revolutionary War. It includes the perspectives of women, Native Americans, and enslaved and freed Black people, the people excluded from the Declaration, all men are created equal. We'll talk about how the war, which he says was also a civil war, echoes today. Join us.
Fresh Air can now be heard weeknights, Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Support for WUSF and its hurricane coverage comes from EnduraFlood, made to protect Florida homes from drywall damage caused by flooding from hurricanes. Components are designed to be waterproof, and the EnduraFlood wall system can be opened and removed to dry out. Details are at enduraflood.com. Manatee Community Foundation has been your partner in philanthropy for more than 27 years. Opening a donor-advised fund can amplify the impact of your tax-deductible charitable donations. Learn more at manateecf.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, this weekend marked the third nationwide No Kings protest this year. More than a dozen rallies took place in parks and roadways across the Tampa Bay region. Nationwide, some estimates show this was the largest peaceful protest in the United States by decades. Do the groups speaking out affect what elected officials think or do? Maybe you wanted to take part, but you couldn't, or you were afraid to. Call, let's talk about it. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, WUSF sent reporters out to rallies on Saturday in Sarasota and in Tampa. They met students and working people, veterans and grandparents. A few said they hoped the rally would encourage people to speak out. In Tampa, we met Denise Ortiz, a U.S. citizen from Puerto Rico. She says people treat her as if she's in the country illegally and should be picked up in the national immigration sweep.
The amount of times that people still tell me I'm going to get deported, and I'm like, I'm U.S. citizen by birth.
And Saturday was Ortiz's first time protesting. In November, she cast her first vote. She says this administration pushed her into being politically active.
They're throwing out so many random things that they know it's wrong. They're feeling the pressure. Thank God there's judges that know their job, and they're fighting back. I'm very hopeful.
Well, Yvonne Lizarazo dressed in a shark costume at Sarasota's Payne Park demonstration, like others wearing inflatable unicorn and frog costumes. It was a nod to Portland, Oregon, where protesters started the trend to emphasize that the rallies are peaceful.
We're tired of seeing our Constitution trampled on, people being kidnapped off the street. It's horrifying, and I'm really scared for the direction our country's going in right now. And hopefully this will just bring more unity and show that there's more of us than there are of them.
We're going to spend the next few moments asking if these protests are making a difference or if it's just an opportunity for the people not in charge to speak out. And joining the conversation is Bobby Block, Executive Director of the First Amendment Foundation. Bobby, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
No, happy to be here.
All right, so No Kings Day is a protest that has happened a couple of times so far this year. What's your understanding of the focus of these protests?
The focus of the protests are just as the name implies. It's an attempt to gather public attention and numbers out to tell the administration that the United States was founded on the principle of no monarchs. So his idea, or the idea of his supporters, of an expanded executive with extreme powers is something that a lot of people feel is not an American tradition and not wanted, and it's an attempt to demonstrate that.
What are you seeing in what you've seen of these protests so far? I mean, is this like a typical American protest? Is there something a little bit different about what you're seeing happening?
You know, that's a strange question. I think that this follows in line with movements that we've seen in the past. Most recently, I would say it was the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement, if you remember, took place during the early years of the Obama administration. And just like now, the Obama administration dismissed the significance of those movements, and they eventually led to the conservatives taking over Congress and and the rise of Donald Trump. So I think there's a tradition and history of them in this country, and I think it fits into that fact. I thought they were remarkable for how restrained they were and how there were no instances or no significant instances of violence at any of them, which I think was very important. And I think the organizers tried to make that clear to the participants that that kind of action was not what they wanted, nor did they think it would be helpful.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the No Kings Day protests over the weekend. If you went, call and tell us about it, 813-755-6562. Let us know if you think these marches are inspiring more Americans to speak up. The number is 813-755-6562. Let's go to the phones. We've got Charlie on the line. Charlie, you're on the air. Go for it.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I did not go to the No Kings protest. I'm no fan of the current administration. It just smacks to me of just an opportunity to paint a sign and wear a goofy outfit and generate social media content. I think the administration knows already. They're aware. There's lots of people out there that don't like them. And I'm afraid it just gives people that do participate sort of the exemption where they say, see, I did something. No, the real something is far more complex, takes a lot more effort and a lot more planning than showing up, painting a sign, and wearing an outfit. And for those that went, not trying to insult you, but that's just my view.
Just real quick before we let you go there, Charlie, what would you recommend then? What's your kind of prescription for doing something?
Oh, that's not easy at all. I mean, you can't consolidate that in 1 minute, right? That's an hours-long discussion. And I think that's why events like these are appealing, right? I don't, it allows people to say, well, I don't have to have the real answer or real sustained effort or real strategic thinking. I can dress up, go to this thing, and say, see, I did my bit.
Yeah.
And that's, that I think is going to be the long-term challenge for all of us that aren't fans of those folks that are in power right now.
Charlie, thank you so much for calling in. If you'd like to join the conversation, the number is 813-755-6562. Let's go to the phones again. Ken is on the air. Ken, what did you see at those protests if you went?
Yes, I did. We went to the ones in downtown Tampa. My family and good many friends, and it's just one act. It's a very serious challenge we're dealing with here. I mean, I'm 75 years old. I'm old enough to remember what it was like in the Vietnam War protest, and unlike your previous caller, I'm not insulted by what he said, but we didn't just show up and carry a sign. I've been packing the emails to our senators and Congress people, and protesting this whole thing. I'm totally disgusted, and quite honestly, I'm scared to death. I'm a student of history. I'm well aware of what the post-World War I Germany was like, and I see the same thing happening here, and it scares the hell out of me.
Ken, thank you so much for your call. Really appreciate that. Bobby, what are you hearing in that? A couple of different views there. One of our callers saying protest isn't enough, another saying it's important.
Well, I disagree that protest is not enough. It's a very American tradition. It's a global tradition. We've seen mass movements around the world make a difference. I think it's important to recognize that Trumpism is more than just a set of policies. It's a cultural movement. The MAGA movement offers people a sense of belonging, a comprehensive political ethic. And in order for people who don't agree with this and any movement going forward, to beat a social movement, you got to build a counter-social movement. And to do that, you need a different narrative about where we are and where we should be heading. And you have to help create and show the difference in the styles and aims. And one of the ways you do that is you do that with protest movements. And one of the ways you do that is by incorporating novel ideas like the anime One Piece flag that seems to involve everyone, these crazy inflatable costumes. What they do is they show a difference in approach and in handling to the more militant rallies that we saw, when Trump would speak. And at the same time, when you talk about dressing up in costumes, let's go back to the Tea Party movement. Those guys were donning patriotic, costumes from the late 18th century. So, the fact of the matter is that protest movements make a difference when they grow. And what you saw over the last weekend was they grew in number. I think they grew by at least 2 million, according to some press reports.
Yeah, I think the organizers had an estimate of like some 7 million across the country.
Right, and I think that's about 2 million more than the last time. So, and I also think that given the way that Trump has tried to mock it and troll it, is an indication that his supporters and his social media workers do see it as a platform. And one of them, with Trump dressed up as a king and a pilot in a King Trump bomber, dropping raw sewage. He wasn't dropping sewage on rioters. He was dropping sewage on people who were actually peacefully protesting.
Right.
And I think that that's a recognition that it has gained the attention of that. And to be quite honest, as an advocate of the First Amendment, I'd rather see people fighting it out in memes than actually fighting it out in the streets, or with the president deciding, rather than to drop virtual sewage on them, to send out the National Guard.
Right.
So
I just want to get a couple of more pieces of sound in here, if I could. Stay with us though, Bobby. Many voices we found at rallies were veterans or those who had loved ones who served. And a few days before the rallies, we did hear from House Speaker Mike Johnson. He described the protesters very differently.
We're going to bring together the Marxists, the socialists, the Antifa advocates, the anarchists, and the pro-Hamas wing of the far-left Democrat Party. That is the modern Democratic Party. That's where they've gone. And the Hate America rally is the common theme among all those groups.
And then in Sarasota, here's Gene Jones of Florida Veterans for Common Sense, who said protesting at No Kings rallies served the same purpose as his time in the military.
We see these protests as a continuation of our service. We stand up for democracy.
Well, let's go to the phones again. Let's go to Robin. Robin, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yes. The only thing that bothers me, I'm not on anyone's side. I just think it's a very big embarrassment to our country that people feel that they can just discard authority. I mean, the way they treat people in government, they should be sitting down talking between the both of them instead of calling people names. And the hatred that's going around is very disappointing. It drives me crazy.
Right.
I mean, I have grandchildren, and they say, "Graham, what are they doing?"
Huh.
I mean, if you came across the border, hello, and you didn't go the right way, then go home.
Right.
Do we go to other countries and do the same thing? No.
Thanks for your call. I really appreciate that. Let's get one more call in here if I could. Paul, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hello. Please don't cut me off. Let me finish. I got several things to say.
Well, just pick one of those, because Paul, we've only got a minute here, so just pick one of those things.
All right. Well, one of the things is, why do you call it the No Kings, and you have your poor politicians putting up with this charades? How do you become a king? You have to change the Constitution. You have to do a lot of things. It's ridiculous. All of us with common sense, you're preaching to your own choir. Everybody with common sense say it's just laughable. It's only the only people that are protesting are the ones that hate Trump or the ones who voted against it. Nobody else is. So talk about that for us. How you change the Constitution to become a king.
Paul, thank you so much for your call. Appreciate that. Well, just in the final minute or so we have here, Bobby, a lot of different viewpoints there, but it sounds to me from what you're saying is that there is some momentum to the No Kings protest. Where do you see it going from here?
Look, let's be honest here. This is a divided country. There's relatively about half of the population who have one vision for the future and about half that have another. And this has been our politics for a while now. And what you're seeing in these comments is a reflection of that. And what you saw previously to this when it was Obama was president was a reflection of that. And I expect it to continue and grow. Ultimately, in my opinion, what changes regimes is a combination of policies that affect people's pocketbooks and a sense of being overbearing or hard. And I think a lot depends on how Washington and this administration goes forward and handles it. And I think it depends. You're starting to see, according to the polls, disaffection. So my guess is it'll grow, but a lot remains to be seen.
Bobby Block, Executive Director of the First Amendment Foundation of Florida. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that. Well, coming up next, do you have a pet? Your fur baby may be your hero, but are they worth a special honor? Hear what it takes to train a service dog. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay tuned.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. A new Diary of a Wimpy Kid novel is coming out. The series has sold almost 300 million books. Creator Jeff Kinney says it's because of his middle school protagonist.
So I'm 20 books in now, and Greg looks miserable on every cover. That's part of the appeal. You could say, well, I'm having a bad time of things, but this kid's having it a little bit worse.
Next time on Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
Looking for something fun and cheap to do in the Tampa Bay area but don't know where to look? I'm Sky LeBron, and listen, I got you covered. The Bay Blend is a new podcast from WUSF each weekday morning, and in just about 5 minutes, I'll tell you about which events are hot, along with a quick hit of local news each day. And did I mention it's only like 5 minutes long? Check it out. I think you'll like it. And I'm not biased, I swear. That's The Bay Blend, wherever you get your podcasts, or at WUSF.org. See you there.
When the weather gets dangerous, Florida Public Radio Emergency Network meteorologists strive to keep you informed. You can stay up to date year-round on WUSF and on the mobile app Florida Storms. Supported by WUSF and Citizens Property Insurance. Online at citizensfla.com. Straz Center's Opera Tampa celebrates 30 years with 2 literary classics, The Turn of the Screw and The Shining. The Magic Flute and Macbeth end this spellbinding season, which starts in November. Tickets are available at operatampa.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. If you have a pet, have you ever wondered, could they get a job as a service animal? The American Humane Society is highlighting heroes on both ends of the leash with its annual Hero Dogs Awards. People can nominate dogs in different categories, and this year 3 of the top 25 nominees had a connection with Dogs, Inc. It's a Palmetto organization that trains service dogs. Just a note, Dogs, Inc. isn't associated with the American Humane Society, and Dogs, Inc. has been a financial supporter of WSF. We're joined by Katie Baker. She's a trainer with Dogs, Inc.
Thank you for having me.
And she's got Star with her. He's being very quiet and well-behaved down by her feet. Star is a service dog in training. But if you have questions about what it takes to make a service dog or a story you'd like to share about a service dog or animal that had an impact on you, you can email us, FloridaMatters@WSF.org, and call 813-755-6562. Now, Katie, the 3 dogs on the list of that 25 nominees for the Hero Dog Awards include therapy dog Quentin. He works at Tampa Bay Hospital. There's an electronic scent detection canine, Harrison, who works with the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina, and guide dog Donald, who was matched with a female veteran who lives in Fort Myers. So quite a range of skills and jobs there. How do you know what kind of service animal a puppy is going to be?
You never know until they get into training, but they have things that help us indicate along the way what they're going to want to do. So a dog who is really scent driven and wants to sniff everything would be a really good scent detection dog. Mm-hmm. Dogs who want to pull forward and explore the world and make their own decisions make really good guide dogs. And service dogs are dogs that are really tuned into their handler and really want that connection, want to be in tune with what people are feeling and be able to respond to those. Mm-hmm. But all those types of dogs have a lot of very similar characteristics as well. Like, we're looking for confident dogs who can take on the world and not be afraid of a place that's not meant for dogs usually.
Yeah, right. Dogs can go pretty much anywhere they want to, though, right? I mean, there's not many places you can keep a dog out of.
Yeah, service dogs. So the guide and the service dogs have public access rights, so they are allowed pretty much everywhere out in public. But it looks a lot different from a dog's perspective. Like open back stairs, we might not see that or even really register it, but to a dog it looks really scary to be able to see the ground so far underneath you. Elevators are weird when you don't know what's happening and you can just feel the sensation. Airplanes can be really scary, so they can go everywhere, but not every dog wants to go everywhere, so we're really selecting the dogs who thrive in those environments.
Yes. Now, I'm wondering about Star. Star's being very well behaved. I can't hear a sound from Star. Does he speak at all? What does he do?
He does not speak at all. We train our dogs to be very quiet, so they're not disruptive out in public. But he does what we call grounding skills. So if I were to feel anxious, or his handler were to feel anxious, or start to have a panic attack, say, elevated levels, he would come and offer grounding skills. So he could lean against me. He could offer deep pressure therapy, co-regulation techniques. He can also alert to that. So a lot of times people are not aware that they're feeling that way until it's almost too late. You know, you're at the brink of a panic attack. So they alert us earlier that that's happening, so you can take those steps to calm yourself down. He also does mobility skills. So he could help a person to get up and down from a seated position or on the floor. He can retrieve items that have been dropped so people don't have to bend over. So there's a lot of other skills that he can do.
Can you show us a little bit of what he's capable of
Sure. He's in the middle of a nap. But
he's napping. Okay, sorry, Star.
So one of the grounding skills that he loves, hug, come on. Good boy. So he's just gonna lay across my lap. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah. Okay.
But what we're looking for is a really calm, relaxed dog that is offering that pressure, very similar to a weighted blanket, and is offering that co-regulation. So studies have shown that calm dogs are able to help us regulate our nervous systems when we're feeling unregulated. So that close contact, kind of chest to chest, with a nice calm dog is really helpful.
How much does he weigh?
He is right under 80 pounds, so he's a big boy.
Okay, so that's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure, yeah.
A little more than a weighted blanket, probably.
Absolutely, yeah. And we do have smaller dogs as well for for different people. But that is his favorite thing to do, just hang out up here.
Has he been matched with anyone yet, or is he going to go out in the wide world and be somebody's therapy animal?
Hopefully he will be somebody's service dog. We always say it's not done till it's done, right? So anything could happen. He could show us for example, he has a training flight in a couple weeks, so if that is really not something that he enjoys and he has a hard time with it, he might not be placed as a service dog. But we are hoping within the next few months we'll be able to identify a handler for him.
A training flight, so he's going to get on a plane and see what that's all about.
Yeah, we serve clients in all 50 states. So we go out and do in-person home interviews before they're placed with a dog. So we do a lot of flights that way. And then we also do yearly recertification. So every handler in every 50 states that we have dogs in, we go visit them every single year. So we have a lot of opportunities to fly with dogs.
Yeah, okay. All right, he can probably hop back on the floor if you want to let him get back to his napping.
Good boy.
Okay, so You've got Star. Now he's a Labrador, or is he?
He is a full Labrador. Some of our dogs are mixes between Labrador and Golden Retrievers. We call them Goldadors.
Okay.
For the most part, they're
they tend to be the same breed, though.
Yeah, those are the only breeds that we work with. Any style of dog, any breed of dog can be a service dog. We just specialize in Labs and Goldens.
How can I become a trainer? If somebody's interested in this as a career, what do you do?
Yeah, I always advise people to just go and shadow and see what it is actually like working hands-on with dogs and then with other trainers. Our organization is accredited through Assistance Dogs International, so all of our trainers have to go through a 3-year-long apprenticeship. So being partnered with an organization that's accredited, spending 3 years really learning all the details of what it takes to have a service dog, train a service dog, and place a service dog. And then after that, you get accredited and can go on your own.
How long have you been working with Dogs Inc.?
I've been with Dogs Inc. about 4 years now.
Okay. And so what kind of got you into wanting to do this as a career?
Yeah, I started in high school. I had to do a large project. So I was actually a puppy raiser for a different guide dog school where I grew up. And so I spent a year and a half raising 2 different puppies for this guide dog organization and absolutely fell in love with it. And from there, I just dipped my toe in. I took an internship, which turned into an apprenticeship, which turned into several years of work.
So you haven't, the kind of spark hasn't left you?
Not at all, no. Yeah. It never gets old. It's hard to have a bad day when you're surrounded by adorable dogs. And then just seeing the impact that they make on people's lives is really what keeps us all going.
What surprised you about it, though? Because I'm sure you may have thought something about what the job entailed before you started doing it, and now you're like, okay, now I get how it works. Like, is it a lot different from how you imagined?
Some aspects of it can be different and challenging. I think people think we just play with puppies all day long, and that is wonderful. That's
Oh,
kind
you
of
do a bit of that though, right?
We do. We definitely play with them. We enjoy them as individuals, but it is really hard work too. And educating the public is really hard. There's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about service dogs and what they can be, how they should be treated out in public. So I would say the toughest part is just spreading that message and informing people who might want to push back on a dog's rights to be out in public.
Right. How about the sort of matching process of you've got a service dog that's trained up, ready to graduate and go out in the world? How do you kind of pair it up with somebody who needs that service animal?
Yeah, so we have a long list of applicants, and we do phone interviews with them, home interviews with them to really see what their whole picture of what their life is like. And as we have a dog who is nearing completion in their training, we're always looking at that list and saying, okay, this, and this are really important to this dog. This is where they really thrive and where they want to work. And then we try to find the applicant who matches that best.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any dogs that flunk out?
We do. Career change dogs is what we call them.
Okay.
But that would be those would be dogs who might go to military families who have maybe lost a loved one in service and just need a really well-trained, calming pet dog. We also just offer companion dogs for military families who haven't lost someone, or children who might be losing their vision but not yet old enough for a guide dog. So we do a lot of companion dog placements for our dogs who maybe aren't suited for service work.
So they're still well trained. They just don't have quite the skills they need to take it to the next level.
Absolutely, yeah. So they're essentially a pet dog with some really nice training under their belt. And then occasionally we have dogs who have a lot of energy and just don't fit into our program. So that would be like the scent detection dog that is up for the Hero Dog Award.
Yeah, and what about dogs that are, once they retire from being service animals, then what?
Most of the time they just retire as pets in the home where they've been living. Most people, a vast majority of the people want to keep that dog that has been by their side. But if for whatever reason they couldn't, we encourage them to find a friend or family member who would take that dog in. And if there is nowhere else for the dog to go, they can always come back to our campus and they will be offered back to the person who raised them when they were a puppy.
Do you have a sense from the work you've been doing for the last 4 years, like when you see a puppy, can you kind of tell what it's going to be good at? Yeah, definitely. There are some traits that do really well and some traits that indicate maybe they won't be as successful, but pretty much with good training, any dog can be a really nice dog. Confidence is the biggest thing. That's harder to build up with a dog who just isn't comfortable being out in new places. And, you've trained probably a lot of dogs. Do you have a number on it over the years?
I would guess probably between 200.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites from that time?
I absolutely have some favorites, yeah. Yeah, I worked for another organization before this as well. And one of the dogs there, she actually was born at Dogs Inc. and then transferred over to that school. So I always said that's where I fell in love with Dogs Inc. because she came from that school and she's a great dog. But there have definitely been a handful of dogs at Dogs Inc. that I hold in my heart and get excited every time I get to see them.
What's one thing you'd want sort of people to take away from this conversation thinking about service animals? Because it sounds like there is a little bit of pushback occasionally to service animals out in public.
Yeah, I would just ask the general public to remember that these are essentially like life-saving tools. The dogs that you see out in public that have been properly trained are there for a reason, and every time that you try to distract that dog or talk to that dog and ignore the person, it's really hurtful to that person and can have really disastrous consequences. So treat them as you would like a cane or a walker that is helping that person to go about their lives in a normal way. And you can absolutely talk to the person about their dog. Most people love chatting about their dogs, but remember that the person is there too. So speak to the person first, then ask them about their dog and try not to distract the dog.
Katie Baker is a trainer with Dogs Inc., and she joined us with Star, a service dog in training. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's our show for today. Tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, we'll be asking, why is it so hard to find a primary care doctor? The shortage of doctors in the Tampa Bay region is only expected to grow. So have you had any luck finding a doctor, or have you given up? Call in tomorrow and let us know. We're at 813-755-6562. Or you can send us an email now at floridamatters@wusf.org. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Our intern is Lily Belcher. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Garvin. Jackson composed the music, and Warren Buckholtz handled the video. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch on WSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.